They believed they were sending away nothing more than a lonely wife, but before the week was over, they would discover that dignity never travels alone. The Moretti estate stood proudly on a hill overlooking the Hudson River, its towering stone walls reflecting the soft afternoon sunlight as luxury cars arrived one after another through the grand iron gates. Inside the magnificent mansion, preparations continued for an exclusive luncheon attended by influential business leaders, charity organizers, and longtime family associates. Every crystal glass sparkled beneath elegant chandeliers. Every floral arrangement rested perfectly on polished tables, and every member of the household staff moved quietly through the halls, determined to keep the day flawless. Yet beneath the appearance of order, tension had quietly settled over the estate during the past several months. Vincent Moretti, a respected mafia boss known for discipline and calm judgment, had spent more time traveling for business than at home, leaving countless household decisions in the hands of those around him. His wife, Emily Carter Moretti, carried a different responsibility. 7 months pregnant with their first child, she spent most of her days reading in the sunroom, writing letters to her future baby, and speaking warmly with every employee who crossed her path. Although she now moved more carefully because of her pregnancy, she never allowed anyone else to carry burdens she believed she could still manage herself. She thanked every cook after each meal, remembered every gardener's birthday, and often left homemade cookies in the staff lounge before anyone noticed they had appeared. To the employees, Emily was not simply the lady of the house. She was the gentle heart that quietly held the mansion together. That afternoon, she slowly walked through the entrance hall carrying a small knitted baby blanket she had been working on for weeks. A peaceful smile rested on her face as she imagined placing it inside the nursery that was nearly finished upstairs. Before she could reach the staircase, the sound of expensive heels echoed sharply across the marble floor. Sophia Bennett stepped into the hall, wearing an elegant designer outfit and an expression filled with confidence. Several household employees immediately lowered their eyes, sensing trouble before a single word had been spoken. Sophia looked around the room as though she already owned every wall surrounding her. Then her gaze settled on Emily. "You should not still be here," she said calmly. Emily paused, surprised more than offended. "I believe there must be some misunderstanding," she answered politely. "This is my home." Sophia folded her arms. "Vincent is not here, and he will not be returning until tomorrow. I have already decided it is time for you to leave." The words drifted through the silent hallway, leaving every employee frozen in place. Emily looked from one familiar face to another, seeing discomfort in every pair of eyes, but fear keeping everyone silent. She placed one protective hand gently over her unborn child before speaking with remarkable composure. "If Vincent wishes to speak with me, I will gladly wait until he returns." Sophia shook her head without hesitation. "You will not be waiting here." She instructed 2 employees to bring Emily's overnight bag from the guest suite, where some of her belongings had recently been moved during nursery renovations. Neither employee wanted to obey, but years of habit left them standing uncertainly between compassion and authority. Emily quietly accepted the small travel bag when it was brought to her. She thanked the young housekeeper who handed it over, even noticing tears gathering in the woman's eyes. Without raising her voice, without defending herself, and without allowing bitterness to appear on her face, Emily wrapped her light coat around her shoulders, held the knitted baby blanket close to her heart, and slowly walked toward the massive front doors. As they opened, a cool autumn breeze swept through the entrance hall. One by one, the employees watched the pregnant wife step beyond the gates of the estate she had lovingly called home, while behind her the mansion, though as beautiful as ever, suddenly felt colder than anyone inside had ever remembered. Emily Carter Moretti did not look back as the towering iron gates slowly closed behind her. The sound echoed through the quiet afternoon like the final page of a chapter she had never expected to end. A cool autumn breeze carried golden leaves across the long stone driveway, while she tightened her light coat around herself and gently rested one hand over the life growing beneath her heart. Her small overnight bag felt strangely light compared to the weight of everything she was leaving behind. She had entered the Moretti estate years earlier as a hopeful young woman deeply in love with Vincent, believing that together they could build a family stronger than the shadows surrounding his powerful world. Now she walked away carrying nothing more than a knitted baby blanket, a change of clothes, and the quiet dignity no one had been able to take from her. Several members of the household staff remained standing near the entrance long after she disappeared beyond the gates. None of them returned to work immediately. The elderly butler lowered his eyes in silent regret, while the young housekeeper who had handed Emily the overnight bag quietly wiped away tears before anyone noticed. The mansion had not become louder after Emily left. It had become painfully silent. Emily slowly made her way down the tree-lined road until she reached a small bus stop overlooking the river. She sat carefully on the wooden bench, breathing steadily while watching traffic move through the late afternoon sunlight. She reached into her purse and looked at her cell phone for several long moments. Vincent's name appeared at the top of her recent calls. Her thumb rested above his number, but she never pressed it. She knew he was attending meetings several states away and would not answer until evening. More importantly, she did not want the first conversation about their unborn child to begin with accusations spoken through anger. She quietly locked the phone and slipped it back into her purse. Instead, she searched for another familiar number, one she had memorized long before she had ever become Emily Moretti. Her oldest brother answered almost immediately. Emily. His voice carried warmth, but also concern. She remained silent for a brief moment, searching for words that would not burden him with unnecessary fear. Finally, she spoke softly. Can I come home for a little while? There was no dramatic explanation, no complaint, no attempt to blame anyone. Only one simple question. On the other end of the line, the warmth instantly changed into quiet determination. Where are you? He asked gently. Emily looked across the road toward a small roadside motel with a glowing vacancy sign. I am safe, she answered. I will stay here tonight. Her brother paused only long enough to understand what she was not saying. Stay exactly where you are, he replied. You are not alone anymore. Emily thanked him with the same calm grace she had shown throughout the day before ending the call. She checked into the modest motel, using her maiden name, entered a simple room with pale walls and a single window overlooking the highway, and carefully placed the knitted baby blanket on the neatly made bed. As evening settled across the quiet town, she prepared a cup of warm herbal tea and sat beside the window watching headlights pass beneath the darkening sky. She gently smiled as she rested both hands over her unborn child and whispered, "Everything will be all right." Hundreds of miles away, for brothers who had spent their entire lives protecting the youngest member of their family quietly began making preparations, and none of them intended to let another sunrise arrive before they reached their sister. Morning sunlight slowly spread across the quiet parking lot outside the small roadside motel as Emily Carter awoke after a restless night. She carefully folded the knitted baby blanket, placed it back inside her overnight bag, and stood beside the window for a long moment watching the first rays of light reflect across the highway. The uncertainty of the previous afternoon had not disappeared, but neither had her quiet determination. She gently rested one hand over her unborn child and whispered the same promise she had made before falling asleep. You will always know you are loved. Less than an hour later, the familiar sound of 4 pickup trucks entered the motel parking lot almost at the same time. One after another, the drivers stepped out without unnecessary words. Ethan Carter, the oldest brother, had built a respected construction company known throughout the state. Mason Carter served as a firefighter whose calm leadership had earned the admiration of his entire department. Caleb Carter owned a successful family ranch where hard work mattered more than appearances. Noah Carter, the youngest of the brothers, taught history at a local high school and believed that character always outlived reputation. Although their careers had taken them in different directions, one thing had never changed. Their little sister had always been the center of their family. As children, they had walked her to school, helped with homework, celebrated every birthday together, and promised their late parents they would always look after one another. Those promises had never faded with age. Ethan quietly knocked on the motel room door. Before Emily could reach the handle, he gently called her name through the wood. It is us. The moment the door opened, all 4 brothers smiled with visible relief simply because they could see she was safe. Emily attempted to apologize for worrying everyone, but Ethan immediately shook his head. You never have to apologize for coming home. Mason carefully took her overnight bag so she would not carry unnecessary weight. Caleb handed her a warm breakfast sandwich and fresh orange juice he had picked up on the drive. Noah quietly wrapped his sister in a gentle hug before stepping back with a reassuring smile. None of them asked who was responsible. None of them demanded explanations. They understood that some wounds needed safety before they needed questions. During the drive toward their childhood hometown, the conversation remained surprisingly ordinary. They spoke about the changing autumn leaves, a neighborhood festival scheduled for the weekend, and the nursery Ethan and his wife had recently finished for their own newborn daughter. They laughed over old family memories, slowly replacing the heaviness in Emily's heart with familiar comfort. As they crossed the county line, Emily looked through the window at fields she had known since childhood. Every mile seemed to return another piece of the peace she thought she had lost. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Vincent Moretti's black sedan rolled through the gates of his estate after an overnight flight. He stepped out expecting the familiar warmth that Emily always brought to the mansion, but instead noticed something unusual before he had even entered the front doors. The gardeners worked without conversation. The housekeepers avoided eye contact. Even the elderly butler, who had served the Moretti family for decades, greeted him with unusual hesitation. Vincent paused inside the silent entrance hall, his eyes instinctively searching for the gentle smile that had welcomed him home after every journey. The house felt exactly the same, yet somehow completely different. For the first time in many years, the magnificent estate no longer felt like a home. It felt like a place that had quietly lost its heart. Vincent Moretti slowly walked through the silent entrance hall, sensing a heaviness that no amount of luxury could disguise. For years he had returned from demanding business trips to find fresh flowers arranged exactly the way Emily preferred, soft music drifting from the sunroom, and the comforting aroma of homemade bread prepared because she always insisted every employee should end the day with a warm meal. Now the grand mansion echoed with nothing but quiet footsteps and restrained voices. Even the chandeliers seemed colder. Vincent placed his briefcase on a polished table before looking toward the elderly butler who had faithfully served the Moretti family for more than 3 decades. "Where is Emily?" he asked calmly. The old man hesitated for the first time in all the years Vincent had known him. His eyes lowered toward the marble floor before he quietly answered, "Mrs. Moretti is no longer here, sir." Vincent frowned slightly, assuming Emily had simply gone to visit friends or attend a medical appointment. "When will she be back?" The butler slowly looked up, his expression filled with regret. "I do not know if she is coming back." The words settled heavily across the hallway. Vincent immediately turned toward the grand staircase. "Find Sophia," he instructed. Minutes later, Sophia Bennett entered the sitting room wearing an elegant smile that disappeared the moment she noticed Vincent's unusually serious expression. "Where is my wife?" he asked without raising his voice. Sophia casually crossed her arms as though discussing an ordinary household matter. She decided to leave. Vincent studied her face carefully. "Emily would never leave without telling me." Sophia responded with practiced confidence. She said she was unhappy and wanted time away. Vincent remained silent for several seconds. He had known Emily for years. She always left handwritten notes before the smallest errands. She never made important decisions without thoughtful conversations. The explanation did not fit the woman he loved. Instead of arguing, Vincent quietly walked toward the nursery upstairs. The room stood almost finished exactly as they had planned together. Tiny books rested neatly on the shelves. A rocking chair sat beside the window overlooking the gardens. Half-completed knitting remained inside a basket near the chair where Emily had spent countless afternoons preparing for their baby's arrival. Vincent gently picked up the unfinished blanket, instantly recognizing the careful stitching of Emily's hands. She would never have abandoned something so important without reason. As he returned downstairs, he noticed several employees standing nearby, pretending to organize supplies that clearly did not need organizing. Their uneasy silence revealed more than words ever could. Vincent called the estate manager, Charles Whitmore, into his private office. Charles had worked for the Moretti family long before Vincent inherited responsibility for the estate, and his honesty had never once been questioned. Closing the office door behind him, Vincent spoke quietly. "Tell me exactly what happened while I was away." Charles remained silent for a long moment, torn between loyalty and conscience. Finally, he answered with careful honesty. Sir, before I speak, I ask only one thing. Please remember that every person who remained silent that day has regretted it ever since. Vincent's expression slowly hardened, not with anger, but with growing concern. Outside the office, housekeepers, gardeners, and kitchen staff continued working in complete silence, each carrying the same memory that had haunted the mansion since Emily walked away. For the first time since becoming head of the Moretti family, Vincent realized that whatever truth waited behind Charles's next words would not simply explain his wife's disappearance. It would reveal whether he had unknowingly allowed the people he trusted most to fail the one person who had always filled his home with kindness. Charles Whitmore took a slow breath before speaking, choosing every word with the care of a man who understood that truth could change lives. Mrs. Moretti did not leave because she wished to leave, sir, he said quietly. She was instructed to leave while you were away. Vincent remained perfectly still, but the calm expression on his face grew noticeably heavier. By whom? He asked. Charles lowered his eyes for only a moment before answering. Miss Bennet told Mrs. Moretti that she was no longer welcome in this house. The room fell silent. Vincent said nothing, allowing Charles to continue without interruption. Your wife never argued. She never raised her voice. She simply asked if she could wait until you returned. The request was refused. Vincent slowly leaned back in his chair, struggling to reconcile the words with everything he believed about his home. Charles continued, his voice carrying quiet regret. Several employees witnessed the conversation. We should have spoken sooner. We believed you would learn the truth immediately after returning. We were wrong. Vincent looked toward the security monitor mounted along the office wall. Show me the recordings. Within minutes, the estate's security supervisor entered with archived footage from the previous afternoon. The video displayed the entrance hall exactly as Charles had described it. Vincent watched Emily standing peacefully with the unfinished baby blanket in her hands. He saw Sophia speaking confidently, while the household staff remained frozen by uncertainty. He watched his wife place one protective hand over her unborn child before accepting the overnight bag without protest. Most painful of all, he watched Emily thank the young housekeeper who handed it to her, offering kindness even in the middle of her own humiliation. She never shouted. She never insulted anyone. She simply walked toward the front doors with quiet grace. The recording ended as the iron gates slowly closed behind her. Vincent remained seated without speaking. No one in the office dared interrupt the silence. Finally, he looked at Charles. Why did no one contact me? Charles answered honestly. Several employees wanted to, sir. Mrs. Moretti asked us not to. She said you deserve to hear the truth directly rather than through panic and anger. She did not want your business meeting disrupted because of her pain. Vincent lowered his head for the first time that day. Emily had protected his responsibilities even while no one had protected her. That realization settled heavily upon him. He quietly stood and walked into the sunroom, where sunlight poured through the tall windows exactly as it had every afternoon when Emily liked to read. Her favorite chair remained beside the bookshelf. A novel still rested open with a ribbon marking the page she had never returned to finish. Beside it sat a small notebook. Vincent gently opened it and found lists of baby names written in Emily's careful handwriting. Some names had little hearts beside them. Others included short notes about family traditions, favorite memories, and hopes for the future. There were reminders to bake cookies for the staff before Thanksgiving and to visit the children's hospital during the holiday season. Not one page contained resentment. Every page reflected generosity. Vincent quietly closed the notebook and looked across the empty room. For the first time, he understood that the greatest mistake made inside his mansion had not happened because someone spoke cruelly. It had happened because too many good people had remained silent. At that same moment, more than 200 miles away, the Carter brothers loaded their vehicles once again, not with anger in their hearts, but with a shared determination to stand beside their sister with the same unwavering love they had promised her since childhood. The following afternoon, the quiet rhythm of the Moretti estate changed once again, not because of raised voices or flashing lights, but because 4 ordinary pickup trucks rolled slowly through the front gates after receiving permission from Vincent himself. The security guards recognized none of the men personally, yet something about the calm confidence with which they stepped from their vehicles discouraged unnecessary questions. Ethan Carter adjusted his jacket before looking toward his three younger brothers. Mason quietly nodded. Caleb folded his hands behind his back. Noah offered a reassuring smile that reflected neither fear nor anger. They had not come to create conflict. They had come to stand for their sister. Inside the mansion, household employees noticed the visitors through the tall front windows. Whispers spread softly through the hallways as everyone wondered whether the long silence that had settled over the estate was finally about to end. Charles Whitmore personally opened the front doors and welcomed the four brothers with genuine respect. "Mr. Moretti is waiting in the library," he said. Ethan thanked him politely before leading his brothers through the familiar halls where family photographs and priceless artwork decorated every wall. None of the brothers admired the luxury surrounding them. Their attention remained focused on one purpose alone. Vincent stood beside the fireplace when they entered the library. For several quiet seconds, no one spoke. 5 men looked at one another, each carrying different burdens, but sharing the same concern for one woman who was not present. Vincent stepped forward first. "Thank you for coming." Ethan shook his hand firmly. "We came because Emily is our sister before she is anyone else's wife." Vincent accepted those words without objection. He quietly invited them to sit, but Ethan remained standing. "We would rather speak honestly while standing," he said respectfully. Vincent nodded. "Then let us speak honestly." There was no hostility inside the room, only sincerity. Mason glanced around the library before speaking with the calm voice that had steadied countless people during emergencies throughout his career. "Emily has never asked us to solve her problems. She has always believed that kindness deserves another chance. Even yesterday, she refused to speak badly about you." Vincent lowered his eyes briefly. Noah then reached into his coat pocket and carefully removed a folded photograph. He placed it on the table between them. It showed Emily as a little girl sitting on an old wooden fence surrounded by her 4 older brothers, all smiling beneath the summer sun. "After our parents passed away," Noah said quietly, "we made a promise that she would never face life believing she stood alone. We are here to keep that promise." Caleb finally spoke, his deep voice gentle despite its strength. "We are not here to judge you. We are here because a family should never allow silence to become stronger than truth." The room became remarkably still. Every word settled naturally without accusation. Vincent looked at the childhood photograph for a long moment before speaking. "I failed her." None of the brothers interrupted. Vincent continued with complete honesty. "Not because I ordered her to leave. Because I trusted my home to remain safe without making certain it truly was. I believed my absence would not matter. I was wrong." Ethan slowly nodded, recognizing genuine remorse rather than empty excuses. He took one step closer and asked the only question that truly mattered. "When your child is old enough to ask what happened this week, what story do you hope that child will hear from you?" Vincent did not answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the family photograph resting on the polished table. Outside the library, several employees had quietly gathered within sight of the partially open doorway, listening not because they enjoyed private conversations, but because every person inside the mansion understood that the answer to Ethan's question would determine whether the Moretti estate remained merely a beautiful building or finally became a true home once again. After several long seconds, Vincent finally lifted his eyes from the faded family photograph resting on the table. His voice remained steady, but every word carried a sincerity that no title or position could strengthen. "I want my child to hear that when I realized I had failed my family, I chose to make it right instead of protecting my pride." Ethan studied Vincent's face carefully. Throughout his years leading a construction company, he had learned to recognize the difference between rehearsed apologies and genuine accountability. What he saw standing before him was not the confident man who commanded respect from powerful people across the country. He saw a husband confronting the painful truth that the greatest failure in his life had happened inside his own home. Before anyone could respond, a hesitant knock sounded at the library door. Charles Whitmore stepped inside with quiet respect. "Sir, Miss Bennett has arrived. She requested to see you immediately." Vincent did not hesitate. "Please ask her to join us." A few moments later, Sophia Bennett entered the library with the same confident posture she had displayed throughout the previous week. The moment she noticed the 4 Carter brothers standing beside Vincent, her smile briefly faded before quickly returning. She attempted to maintain her composure as she addressed Vincent. I did not realize you were having visitors. Vincent answered calmly. These are Emily's brothers. Sophia nodded politely before speaking with practiced confidence. I believe there has been a misunderstanding about everything that happened. Vincent remained silent, allowing her every opportunity to explain herself honestly. Instead, she continued. Emily chose to leave because she needed space. I simply respected her wishes. The room remained perfectly still. No one interrupted. No one argued. Charles quietly stepped forward, holding a small tablet containing the estate security recordings. Sir, with your permission. Vincent nodded once. Charles placed the tablet on the table and replayed the footage from the entrance hall. Every person in the room watched the same quiet scene unfold once again. Emily standing peacefully. Sophia instructing her to leave. Emily asking only to wait until Vincent returned. The overnight bag. The gentle thank you to the young housekeeper. The slow walk through the front doors. When the recording ended, silence filled the library more completely than any accusation could have. Sophia stared at the dark screen without speaking. Vincent finally looked toward the employees who had quietly gathered near the doorway. If anyone wishes to speak, you may do so without fear. One by one, members of the household staff stepped forward. The young housekeeper softly admitted that Emily had comforted her after noticing she was crying. The head gardener explained that Emily had personally thanked every employee before leaving, even though she had every reason to feel hurt. The estate chef recalled how Emily had spent the previous evening preparing meals for the staff before Vincent's return because she wanted everyone to feel appreciated. Every testimony pointed toward the same simple truth. Emily had answered humiliation with grace. Sophia listened as each quiet voice dissolved another excuse. Finally, she lowered her eyes. There was nothing left to deny. Vincent spoke with neither anger nor bitterness. This house was built to protect my family. Instead, my wife was made to feel unwelcome inside it. That responsibility belongs to me. He paused before continuing. Effective today, you will no longer have any authority within this estate, Sophia. I sincerely hope you reflect upon the consequences of treating kindness as weakness. No one applauded. No one celebrated. The employees simply stood together in respectful silence, understanding that justice did not require humiliation to be complete. As Sophia quietly left the library, Vincent looked toward the Carter brothers once again. Now there is only one person whose forgiveness truly matters, he said softly, already knowing the next journey he needed to make would lead not toward another business meeting or another grand estate, but toward the modest family home where the woman he loved had finally found the safety she should never have lost. The drive to the Carter family home took Vincent Moretti nearly 4 hours, yet every mile seemed shorter than the distance he had allowed to grow between himself and the woman who had always believed in him. He chose to travel alone, leaving behind the convoy of luxury, vehicles and security personnel that usually accompanied him. For the first time in many years, he wanted no symbols of influence surrounding him. He carried only a small wooden box containing the unfinished baby blanket, Emily's notebook of baby names, and a handwritten letter he had spent the previous evening rewriting again and again because no sentence seemed capable of expressing the regret he truly felt. As his sedan turned onto the quiet country road leading toward the Carter family farmhouse, he noticed children riding bicycles, neighbors waving from front porches, and fields stretching beneath the bright afternoon sky. It was a place where people knew one another by name instead of reputation. Ethan was waiting near the front gate when Vincent stepped out of the car. Neither man spoke immediately. Ethan simply looked into Vincent's eyes, searching for any sign that pride had returned. Finding none, he quietly opened the gate and invited him inside. The farmhouse was warm with the familiar scent of fresh bread and cinnamon. Family photographs covered the walls, capturing birthdays, graduations, fishing trips, and countless ordinary moments that had become treasured memories. In the living room, Emily sat beside the window knitting with slow, careful movements while soft sunlight rested across the floor. She looked healthier than Vincent had expected, surrounded by the peace of the home where she had grown up. When she looked up and saw him standing in the doorway, surprise crossed her face, but not bitterness. Vincent remained where he was for a moment before slowly walking forward. He placed the small wooden box on the coffee table without attempting to touch her. I brought these home, he said quietly. Emily opened the box and immediately recognized the unfinished blanket and the notebook she had believed she would never see again. Her fingers gently rested upon the familiar pages while Vincent removed the folded letter from his jacket. I wrote this because I was afraid I would fail to find the right words if I spoke too quickly. Emily accepted the letter but did not open it immediately. Vincent took a slow breath. You trusted me to protect our family. Instead, I left you to carry that burden alone. I cannot change what happened, and I will never ask you to pretend it did not hurt. I can only promise that I have finally learned that a home is measured by how safely the people inside it are loved. The room remained peaceful. Emily looked toward her 4 brothers, who quietly nodded before leaving the room together, giving the couple the privacy they deserved. After the front door softly closed behind them, Emily unfolded the letter and read every line in silence. There were no excuses written on the pages, no attempt to blame another person, only responsibility, gratitude, and a sincere promise to earn back the trust he had broken through absence rather than intention. When she finished reading, she carefully folded the letter once more and placed it beside the notebook. She looked at Vincent with calm eyes that reflected both pain and hope. Forgiveness is not something that happens in a single afternoon, she said gently. It is something we build through the choices we make every day. Vincent nodded without hesitation. Then I will spend every day proving that our child grows up in a home where kindness is never left standing alone. Emily slowly reached across the table and rested her hand over his for the first time since he had arrived. It was not the ending of their journey. It was the quiet beginning of rebuilding everything that truly mattered. 6 months later, the first snowfall of winter covered the Moretti estate with a quiet blanket of white, transforming the once imposing mansion into a place that finally reflected the peace growing inside its walls. Warm lights glowed from every window while laughter drifted through the halls that had once echoed with uncomfortable silence. The nursery upstairs was no longer filled with unfinished plans, but with gentle music, handmade blankets, and the peaceful breathing of a healthy newborn daughter named Grace Moretti. Vincent stood beside the crib with a smile that no business victory had ever given him. He carefully lifted his daughter into his arms before walking toward the rocking chair, where Emily sat reading one of the same children's books she had once placed on the nursery shelf months before. Their eyes met, and without a single word they both understood how much had changed since the afternoon she had walked away carrying only a small overnight bag and her dignity. Vincent no longer measured success by the number of meetings he attended or the influence he commanded. He scheduled fewer business trips, returned home before dinner whenever possible, and insisted that every Sunday belonged entirely to his family. The employees noticed the difference before anyone spoke about it. He greeted every member of the household by name, thanked them personally for their work, and encouraged everyone to speak honestly whenever something felt wrong. Charles Whitmore often smiled quietly as he watched the atmosphere inside the estate transform from one built on silent obedience into one strengthened by mutual respect. Emily never asked Vincent to erase the past. Instead, she watched him honor his promises through consistent actions. Trust returned slowly, one ordinary day at a time, until it became stronger than it had ever been before. That afternoon, the front gates opened once again, this time welcoming 4 familiar pickup trucks instead of unexpected sorrow. Ethan, Mason, Caleb, and Noah arrived carrying homemade pies, wrapped gifts, and enough excitement to fill the entire house. The moment they entered, Vincent greeted each brother with genuine warmth before placing little Grace into Ethan's careful arms. The proud uncles took turns holding their niece, laughing over which family member she resembled most, while Emily watched with joyful tears that no longer came from pain, but from gratitude. During dinner, the long dining table was filled not with influential guests or formal conversations, but with family stories, shared memories, and simple happiness. Even the household staff joined them later for dessert after Vincent personally invited everyone to celebrate together. No one felt like an employee that evening. Everyone felt like part of the home they had helped rebuild. Before the night ended, Vincent quietly stood and raised a simple glass of sparkling cider. He looked first at Emily, then at their sleeping daughter, and finally at the 4 brothers whose unwavering love had protected his family when he had failed to do so himself. "Thank you," he said softly, "not for forgiving me quickly, but for reminding me that true strength is not found in power. It is found in protecting the people who place their trust in you. The room grew peacefully quiet. Outside, snow continued falling across the gardens, while warm light spilled through every window of the mansion that had once nearly lost its heart. Grace stirred gently in Emily's arms before opening her tiny eyes as though welcoming the world around her. Vincent smiled, knowing that one day his daughter would ask about the story of her family. When that day came, he would tell her the truth. He would tell her that the strongest people he had ever known were not those who demanded respect, but those who quietly lived with dignity even when the world failed to offer it. And on that winter evening, surrounded by love, humility, and second chances, everyone present understood that a family's greatest inheritance is never wealth or influence. It is the courage to choose compassion when pride would be easier, because that is the choice that allows a house to become a true home, and that is the day everyone remembered what dignity truly looked like.